Well, as a part of the Paris Agreement, every single country has to put forward a pledge on climate change. And the idea is that these pledges are meant to be submitted every 5 years. The first pledge came around in 2015, and the second one came around 2020, 2021 because of COVID. And we saw a remarkable jump in levels of ambition. In the work that we've been doing, we're supporting 127 countries with their national pledges. And of those, 90% increased their mitigation ambition, so they're going to reduce their emissions more, and 95% said they were going to increase their adaptation ambition, meaning they're going to do what it takes to increase their resilience to the impacts of climate change. Energy access is critical. We have over 700 million people in the world that can't really flip on a light switch, don't have access to electricity in their factories or in their industrial processes. And this has huge ramifications across a society. I mean, you don't have to think farther than a young teenager that's just trying to do their homework at night, and they don't have the light that they need to be able to do that work. How it affects their education, how it affects their life is immeasurable. And so one of the key parts of any plan for addressing the climate crisis is that we have to increase the energy that these communities and people can get. And when we can ensure that these communities can get it from the clean stuff, from the sun, from the wind, from sources that are renewable, then we can ensure not only are they getting the opportunities and the electricity and the energy that they need, but also we're doing it in a way that doesn't harm the planet. This adaptation financing gap is really one of the biggest challenges that we face. We see tons of money going toward renewable energy. We see tons of money toward technology for reducing our emissions. But when it comes to the impacts of the climate crisis, these storms that we're seeing in the Caribbean, the flooding in Pakistan, the droughts in the Horn of Africa, it is these impacts that we really need to scale up our support to countries to be able to manage. The Secretary General has called for a balance, a 50-50 split between mitigation and adaptation. Right now, it's at about 75% mitigation, 25% adaptation, and so we have a long way to go. This means increasing levels of financing that's available, but also increasing levels of technical support. How do you install an early warning system? How do you start to make plans for how we design communities to be more resilient to impacts? These are all big questions, and we need all hands on deck for countries to be able to address them. As countries are thinking about how they can reduce their emissions, there's a number of things that they need to put in place. The first is they need a plan. They need an economy-wide plan to reduce emissions. It can't just be about one sector or one community. We have to ensure that an entire economy can do what it takes to keep their emissions down. The next is they need levels of investment. They need money to be able to implement these new technologies, these new ways of working, so that industrial processes, so that transportation systems, energy systems can be retrofitted in a way that helps keep these emissions down. The third thing they need are partnerships and knowledge. This is a new frontier when it comes to mitigation. Reducing emissions is the challenge of every single economy in the world. And ensuring that countries can be talking to each other, can be sharing their lessons, can be sharing their partnerships, to be truly global collaboration is something that is absolutely required to make that a success. Debt is a very big issue. At UNDP, we have done an analysis that said over 50 countries will potentially go into extreme debt over the course of this coming year. This is an immense challenge because if you are a highly indebted country and you experience a Category 5 storm that wipes out your airport, or a country that experiences a flood that damages your coastline and your infrastructure, what are you meant to do? How can you start to pay for some of these infrastructure fixes, for some of these technology fixes that absolutely have to help a country rebuild? And when that just means going into further debt, when that just means the economy not being able to be on stable footing, it's an endless cycle. And so the debt and the climate crisis, especially right now, are completely intertwined.